Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Ascension Teachings. I'm your host Peter Maxwell Suttery and thank you for joining me for another episode. Now, today we're actually going to go into E.T. races. With that said, I've been interacting with everything in this galaxy, in the universe, very far from it, but there is a lot of beings that I've interacted with or have intel on. So we're going to be covering some of this. So the first one we're going to start off with is Shiji, who is a being from the Pleiades. So Shiji, she's a Pleiadian in general, and her job is as a guardian and a gatekeeper of the star Merope in the Pleiades. So with that said, she's both 5th dimensional and 7th dimensional, so there's different aspects of her as well. So the history for Shiji in this case, originally she manifested from the Elohim state on the star Merope. In that state, she's a 7th dimensional being, and her mission is to be a gatekeeper for that star as it's a portal. All stars are portals. Now, eventually Shiji split herself up into a 5th dimensional aspect, which also resides in the Pleiades, and other facets exist elsewhere as well. Now, going further on, her agenda is to regulate the star Merope with the guardians that also reside there, but they also reside on other portals, these guardian type beings, and they also work for the Council of the Whole, and I'll go into them a little bit further as well. Now, on a note, all facets of Shiji are about helping beings to remember how powerful they are. Now, the Pleiadians have a mixture of many different races there, and this is how it was founded after the Lyran and Orion Wars. Those aligned with being positive and in service mode caught up there and started to call it home, and in time, some of them time travelled back to Earth to help with the inception of Atlantis and Lemuria. They also have motherships out in locations for exploring and learning purposes, and they are coming back from the future and also reside in other dimensions. So the Pleiadians aren't just in one dimension, they're in different dimensions. There are also many different types of Pleiadians, as in colours, shapes and sizes, and some are melanin dominant, some have Asian and Nordic traits with Lyran genetics, which also encompasses Orion and Syrian genetics as well. Now, the environment, in large, there's many different environments in the Pleiades. Some of them are very Earth-like. Now, when we look at the environment there that they reside in, depending on the dimension as well, but once it gets closer to our dimension, it's very much like Earth. There's pine trees, there's rivers, but then there's also deserts in other spots, rainforests. The ecosystem is varied, just like it is in other star systems as well. So the ships they have is, reported for eons now, going back a very long time. The Japanese talked about contact with the Pleiadians, the Aboriginals here in Australia, the Native Americans. Worldwide, there is a culture going back in ancient times of them interacting with Pleiadians, but predominantly the flying saucer shaped type craft, but there's also egg-shaped type crafts. There's shape-shifting type crafts, Merkabas. Some of them are evolved enough that they're in their Merkaba and they're flying around in that. And other crafts which are structured from light and consciousness, but it depends on the development of that group and individual as well. Now, here's an interesting one I get a lot of flack for, but it is what it is. So you can see that this being looks like E.T. from the movie E.T., though he's a darker brown and he's also got round black eyes, and this being I call the wise one. Now, race unknown, though I know that it manifested into the 3rd dimensional state once, and its purpose is to incarnate once and pretty much outlive this whole existence for when the implosion or the recycling happens, the rejuvenation of this cell of source. As I was shown that source, this universe, rejuvenates like a cell in our body rejuvenates every 7 years. So there will be a time where it will tick over and reset, and this being doesn't incarnate from life to life to life. It incarnated once, and its job is to experience everything in this dimension from its perspective, and it's highly evolved and is a master being, can go into other dimensions, can manipulate things, can do many different types of things. Now, the origin of this being, as far as I can get back to where it is so far, it gave me a galaxy one day, which is called, or it said it was near, GNZ11, but now it resides in Orion these days. It's working with an Orion group on different projects. Some of it's hybridization, some of it's regulating, some of it's scientific work. So it's highly evolved, and it is the most funniest thing I've ever met. Its sense of humor is crazy. Sometimes on the craft, when I appear on the craft, I don't know where the light's coming from, but it's like it's got a torch here and it's shining onto its face, just like in the horror movies, or like when people are trying to scare people in the dark. but it's usually with small brown Orions, which I'll go into later as well. Now, it's an explorer and it's highly skilled in many different fields, and this being in its group, there's many of its type. They monitor, regulate and help the star nations with different projects. In this case, as I was saying, this being is residing in Orion at this time. So they are highly smart, reliable, in service, and they're master beings in self-defense as well. So they're very highly skilled in so many different areas due to how old it is, and I've got no idea how old this being is, but we're probably talking billions of years, because as I said, it came in to existence in the inception of the universe, basically, from my understanding at this time. Now, the environment, these days it resides on a craft and is a traveller, and its ships, well, the ships of these beings, they vary, but this being in particular, the ship looks like, when you're looking at it, it looks like a skyscraper outline, like you're looking at a city, and then the bottom of it's perfectly round and it looks like it's on fire, so it's pretty trippy. So the next race, the Elohim. Now, I've talked a bit about the Elohim. They have access to all dimensions. They reside in the blueprint, but there are different types of Elohim. So origin, they're from the blueprint of source. Their agenda is one's highest self. So all our higher selves, our highest expression, our highest aspect is an Elohim type being, and they're there for guidance and assistance, emanating an overwhelming amount of love. So their environment, their realm is geometric in nature and structured from light in the master blueprint of source. Now, with the note, they can appear as any coloured light being. So mainly they're seen as a light blue light orb, but they manifest into a 7-foot tall light being after that, which is their natural state. Some are humanoid in appearance and appear to be on fire as an orange or white light. However, this is, in effect their light body, but there's many different types, and that's sort of a projection as well. Pankei, here we got one of my good friends from Orion. So he's from the race called the Nimica, and he's six-dimensional. So he's a six-dimensional being residing behind the star Alnitak in Orion's belt. The history very similar to the Earth human, though most are highly evolved now. They were a very peaceful race before the Orion Wars, which is when the Draco reptilians went in there with Draco Greys and other races to try and take over that area. So also, the AI and the Archon network went in there, the lower light, and they tried to put outposts in Orion and take over that area and have a foothold in that sector of the Milky Way galaxy. They mainly wanted the Horsehead Nebula, which has portals in Orion and has much access to other locations. Now, with the Orion Wars, no race won the war, and the reptilians in the lower light left. This enabled the Orions, a loving but warrior type race, to continue to love and to have no fear as they became fighters of justice for other races nearby. Now, their agenda, their master light warrior being, so the thing I've got to say with this is sometimes they will give a projection of what they look like in a past life. Now, with their name, some of them are given names. It's not like given how names are given here on Earth. But with that said, what happens when I'm interacting with these beings, I feel into their soul frequency. And when I feel that there's a frequency, there's a vibration to it, and there's a tonality to it, and I translate it from that tonality into a word that can be like a mantra. You can use it with intention to connect with them, but that's how I get the name. So most of them don't have names, but they go by the frequency or the name that you can get from their frequency that resonates. It's like a replication of that tonality, if that makes sense. Now, this being in particular is a delegate for the constellation of Orion and is in service mode and helping to regulate relations between the star nations. So Pankei and his race also help with regulating who is coming in and out of our solar system. He's here at times to help with that and doing that in Orion as well, because he works with the group, and to help minimize manipulation of Earth and other places where he's sort of like a overseer for different groups that are doing the monitoring, is the best way that I can put it. And so this is not what all the beings look like in Orion, but this is just a brief overview. So some of the ships are blue, red, white and golden and appear as an orb of light. Some are saucer shaped or shape shift and appear metallic. All have a conscious component, and some are even structured from consciousness. With Pankei, his ship is actually a Merkaba. He flies around in his Merkaba, but he can be on crafts as well. So it just depends on the evolution and the development of the being with what they can and can't do. But eventually we can do everything. It's just the inner work. That's all it is. So Padma. Now, she's from the race called the Lashriya. And she's a fifth dimensional being from Sirius. So these beings have been interacting with the people of Earth since before the time of Egypt, coming to Earth around about 500,000 years ago. And they were assisting the Lyrians along with the lion beings from Sirius, Orion and Lyra, because there's lion beings in those locations as well as many other places. Now, on a note with this, she's a master healer being. So they're manipulators of energy. They're protected beings, but they know how to work from the blueprint and manipulate things from there to manipulate the physicality. So great with healing, great to call upon them. Now, these are the beings I'm interacting with that I've mentioned so far, but they're universal beings. You could meditate and call upon these beings if you're in the right space and experience them yourself. The environment, now in Sirius there's different places, but the environment of her particular place is in a different dimension but similar to Earth, and however everything is made from energy, structured from light with a slight geometric overlay and slight vibration to it. It has pyramids, obelisks, but it looks like it's in like a rainforest type environment. The ships are predominantly orange and gold, and there's blue type orb crafts as well. Kalzen. So Kalzen's from the group called the Zenu in Andromeda constellation. What a lot of people don't realise is when they're talking to me about Andromedans, where are we talking about? We talking about the Andromeda constellation, or we talking about the Andromeda galaxy? Two different things. So origin of this being, she's from the area of Tituan, near the Andromeda constellation area, and they've gone through a similar journey to those on Earth with the rise and fall of civilizations until having a conscious leap in evolution. They now work with the Star Nations and note spiritually and technologically advanced with amazing psychic abilities, healing and manifesting abilities also. Their agenda, they're explorers and delegates, helping to introduce civilizations to the Star Nations as they are making first contact with those in their areas. So their job's to make contact first with those in their location. They mainly work with the Arcturian Council and those in the Andromeda Galaxy as delegates to higher dimensional beings for those in the lower dimensions. So the environment, they reside inside planets in the Tituan area, but do spend time on the surface while in the fifth dimension. So they can change dimensions, and in their dimension everything looks again structured from light and is rainbow iridescent. There's more dimensionality to it, if that makes sense. So the image that you're seeing, it depicts what they look like, or this being looks like when they're manifested in the third dimensional state, which is how they looked until they ascended. So I'm seeing, when I'm interacting with her, I'm seeing a less evolved version of what she once was until she ascended to the fifth dimension, if that makes sense. And their ships can appear as blue, gold or silver orbs of light, and they also have black triangular crafts different from the TR-3B and the government type ones that we hear about as well. Hurrah! This is a being from a group called the Vanar, and they're from the Aquila constellation, and they're fourth up to sixth dimension. History, they are golden humanoid eagle beings, and some have gone through the ascension process. It can appear as a golden humanoid eagle light being structured from light. Now, their agenda, they're part of an alliance that explores, monitors, regulates and assists those in their area and elsewhere in the Milky Way galaxy. Now, the terrain is similar to Earth's when in the third or sixth dimension, but it's vivid and structured from light depending, like it gets more and more vivid and structured from light and more rainbow iridescent as you evolve. So this is how they're seeing stuff, and they don't see you and I as how you're looking at me right now. They actually see our light body predominantly. Now, it depends on the being. They can see us like how we see each other, but predominantly what I found out later was a lot of these higher evolved beings, they actually see us as light. They see our light body, not the physicality, because they're seeing it from the blueprint of this reality. Now, a note, spiritually and technologically advanced they are. They can bilocate as they are in their light body and can travel either individually or as a collective. Now, some of the ships, they have the structure from golden light. Some are in orb form as well, and others are in the shape of an eagle, though the Vanar's crafts can shapeshift and be whatever they want them to be as well, due to their level of consciousness. And they're in their Merkaba light body, as I was saying. Now, here's a guy that I started to interact with from remote viewing, which I started probably about 8 years ago. And this guy does look like the being or the beings in Avatar. I was quite taken aback, just like what I was going to say earlier with the wise one. So many people say he looks like E.T. Yeah, he does look like E.T. It makes me wonder, with James Cameron and Steven Spielberg and a lot of these film directors and people that create these movies, have they had contact? Have they had psychic influence? And I think they have, because it's too spot on. And there's a few different alterations that they've made, but they're very similar. So this being I call the Overseer, and also the blue guy. Now, his agenda, from what I understand, is to monitor and protect that which he's overseeing, and in some cases he's overseeing me and just making sure that I'm okay. Because there is astral entities that are positive and negative depending on our perception that we can encounter when we're in the astral state or remote viewing. So the environment where this being is, basically the universe is his home at this stage of the being's evolution. It appears that this being has access to all that is in the astral realms, other dimensions, the past, present, future, and the interplay between each dimension and the blueprint itself. It is a master being who is in service mode, helping those who are ready to tap into their abilities. The next one we'll go into now is Kali. Now, Kali's from the race called the Maha in the Sirius star system, and she's also a fifth dimensional being as well. So her and her race are very advanced spiritually and technologically. One of the head meeting places in galactic universities is located on their home world in Sirius, and they have many other outposts located in that area as well as abroad. Their agenda, they are explorers and focus on assisting other civilizations in their area. And Kali is equivalent to like an oracle for the Syrian Empire. Now, the environment of the home world is very tropical and rainforest type environment. There's many golden pyramids and obelisks, and it's similar to Egypt in many ways, but imagine Egypt with everything structured from gold, but in a rainforest is the best way I can describe this. And it's got lush plant life and beautiful oceans. Dolphins and other life forms reside there, both on and off land. So they're master healers, spiritual advisors to other civilizations, in this case with the Maha and Kali's group, and continuously working on their spiritual development for their own soul evolution while in that incarnation. Now, some of their ships look like golden, blue or orange light orbs, and some also look like large golden insects in appearance. It's like they're living, in which they are, but they sort of look like cicadas and bug life like that, as well as trippy as it sounds. Now, here's the Guardians. Now, the dimensions they mainly sit in is fourth and fifth dimension, but they have access to all dimensions, and they came into manifestation from the Elohim and the councils as conscious beings, and their job is they're basically worker beings for the council of the whole and the regulators at other portals. So basically all the natural portals and even artificially made portals, these beings in an astral state reside around them, and their regulators, they can't stop things happening sometimes, but they regulate and they report back. So as the higher councils, meaning the council of the whole, and the beings that need to know that are in trying to keep things in check, if they're aware of it, then they've got a heads up on what's going on, and that's what these beings do. They give them a heads up on what's going on, almost like spies, I guess, in a way. And they're the white greys. They've got a great personality. Not all greys are negative, but there are a lot of negative ones. So these are positive beings that are in service, and they're very neutral, and they're the ones that I started interacting with between the ages of 8 and 12. So what we'll do, I want to leave it here on this episode, and I'm going to have to keep going with this in the next episode, but I hope you've enjoyed it. So the exercise for this week that I would like to go into now for you is going to sound trippy, and I think the best way to do this is to sort of push you to do this. Now, not in a negative way, but when I was developing my abilities through people that I know, my teachers both on-world and off-world, they pushed me. And what I want you to do is I want you to use your imagination, and I want you to meditate. So I want you to, again, lay down, sit up, whatever works for you. Close your eyes, do a clearing. I'm going to have to stop saying that soon because I've probably said it 100 times, and you know that's what I recommend. So do a clearing, close your eyes, and what I want you to do is go, I'm going to, and pick a place, whether it's inner Earth, whether it's a place in Sirius, Orion, the Pleiades, Arcturus, Andromeda, Lyra, the Crux system, the Pegasus system, wherever you want to go, even another galaxy or another realm, the angelic kingdom source. I want you to go, I'm going there. This is where I'm going. I'm setting the intention. Let go. Feel the sensation of the body. Start going with that. And you may start to get thoughts, ideas, concepts of what the environment might look like. You may even start to see stuff in your mind's eye. So it sounds crazy for those of you that may be new to this, but give it a go. Everything's got to do with intention. As long as you clear, everything will be okay where you're guided to go. There are guides on the other side that protect and look after you and make sure that you don't get access to that which you're not ready for as well. So give that a go. And thank you again for watching this episode of Ascension Teachings, and I'll see you in the next episode.